Welcome to the latest preview review. We are going to be going over Fiendish Chapter 1, Demons. Now, Fiendish is already on Chapter 2, Origins, and it's amassed $100,000 so far. And the problem is we don't yet have a lettered preview of Fiendish Chapter 2, so I will be going over the lettered preview of Fiendish Chapter 1. There's quite a lot of material in there, 22 pages. So we're going to have a good time with that. Let's give a creator shout out to Irene Rini Strachowski. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm Polish. I should be. She is the creator, writer, and artist of Fiendish. And let's take a look at the entry points to the book. It's a little bit on the high side, $25 for a 50-page comic. And you do have a 10% discount from the original $28. And if you know from my previous videos, I do love me some discounts. Although I am a little bit confused as to why a single issue offer would have a discount in the first place, unless you plan to sell the book for the original price later on. So maybe this is the $25 entry price while the campaign's going, and then it'll be sold for $28 afterwards. Beats me. But you do have a Catch Me Up discount that makes perfect sense. If you want to get Fiendish number 1 and Fiendish number 2 together, you can get that for $45. Now, Fiendish number 1 has been out for a while and amassed $53,000 at the time of its campaign closing. And that is the issue that we're going to be looking at, starting with the cover. I love this cover. I love it because it doesn't really tell you a lot, except it gives you the mood and the tone of the book, and it kind of provides mystery for you right off the bat, because when you're seeing Fiendish here, you're wondering, okay, does that mean the villains the guy's facing are fiendish? Does that mean the guy himself has something fiendish about him? You'll notice the tattoo on his arm that kind of looks like a tentacle. I don't know. Well, that might be a scar rather than a tentacle based on, or a tattoo based on what I've seen in the book. But I just love this cover. I think it provides an excellent, along with the title, excellent introduction to the overall mood and tone of the book. Now, as we get onto the first page, we see a very thin panel that looks like there's fire or sparks or something going on. And then we have a child, what looks like a child, lying on his back. And here's something that I don't know what this is at first. So this is kind of an issue in that we're looking at this prone figure of a child lying on his back, and his eyes are kind of slitted open, which leads me to believe that what we're seeing in this first panel is actually the view of things through his eyes. And then in this next panel, where the person calling his name is calling his name again, it looks like the child is supposed to be looking up at him. And I say supposed to be because we don't actually have a good representation of the fact that we're looking through the child's eyes in either of these panels. What I remember thinking when I first read this page was that we have this scene of fire, and then we have the child who's kind of lying there in a daze, and then you have this dialogue balloon, Casimir, going off into somewhere. But because I can't see enough of what this is, which is actually this guy's arm and robe, I don't know where this guy is positioned. I don't know if I'm looking at something in the background that's far off or just something I can't make out. I don't know where this guy saying Casimir is in relation to the child. And when I first saw this panel, I thought, okay, so he is somewhere, I don't know where, looking for Casimir. And then says, can you hear me? Can you move? And that's what kind of clued me into the fact that he was, right there with the child, and especially with the case of him now in the next panel holding on to the child. And I feel like it would have been a little bit easier if there had been some sort of reference up here in the first and the third panels to tell us that we were looking through the child's eyes. And it wouldn't look necessarily exactly like this, but I was thinking something along these lines. If you had the sort of a, maybe you do it with like 1,000 little lines here, just kind of to show that you're kind of opening your eyes or something. But to show that what you're seeing is in this small window, and you could see the thin eye, and then the eyes open more, and you get to see more of the guy, and you can still fit all the dialogue balloons in it. But I feel like that would have been a better representation of seeing things through the child's eyes. So the child says, Stana, that must be this character, what is it? Did I fall asleep? Now, did I fall asleep kind of led me to think that this was a scene taking place indoors, because where else do you usually fall asleep? Where you don't usually fall asleep is in the middle of the street. That's kind of strange. Now, the whole town is on fire. Why would this kid have laid down and gone to sleep in the middle of the street? I don't really get that. I don't know if I'm supposed to get that, because this is a very mystery laden comic book. So Stana says, I finally got away from them, coughs. Quick, you have to get out of town before. And then the child complains, what? Where am I supposed to go? And aren't you coming? Stana says, I can't run anymore. So basically, the child's going to be out on his own. Says, wait here, I'll get mom and dad. Now, does that mean mom and dad? Is that somebody in relation to the both of them? Is this his brother? I don't know that. And he says, I told you to leave. So he's got some kind of position of authority over this kid, I guess. So maybe this is an uncle, maybe this is a older brother, something like that. One thing I did notice is that this dialogue balloon is placed a little bit precariously too close to this panel's initial dialogue balloon. My eyes did get dragged over here because it's occupying some of this panel space. You generally want to avoid that whenever you can, especially if this is not going to be the next dialogue balloon in sequence. Really, that dialogue balloon probably would have been better off up here with a little bit of a tail leading towards the child's mouth in this case. So watch the dialogue balloon placement, because you always want to make sure that your reader's eyes are going to the right place. Now, here comes the first scene that I kind of have a real problem with. And you got a woman with her boob out. So you've got a couple of demon-like looking creatures, and as well as what I guess is a demon-possessed type woman. Who she is, no idea. Maybe that's the kid's mother. Maybe that's the kid's sister. Maybe this is somebody who's a friend. We have no idea. But she's got her boob out, and I have a bit of a problem with that just from a marketing standpoint, because I'm not sure what message is trying to be communicated here other than this is not a book for kids. And the moment you give off that message, you've cut your profits pretty much in half. There's a thing about R-rated movies versus PG-13 rated movies, the movie rating system. In 2015, an article was written saying that movies rated R returned about 42 million at the box office on average, while the average haul of a PG-rated or PG-13 movie was roughly double that. So the moment you start getting into R-rated territory, you're actually negatively impacting your profits. And unless you are desperately trying to warn anybody who would think about buying this book for a child to get the hell away from this as fast as you possibly can, you really need to cover this up. You don't need to have this kind of really gratuitous nudity in the book. I don't really see any reason for her to be in a state of undress like that, other than just to show her general lack of self-awareness. But the glazed look on her face, I think, does that just fine. Now, along the same lines, where the Fiendish 2 campaign is concerned, you've got this au naturel cover, which apparently shows quite a bit. I don't know if this is R-rated or X-rated, judging from the box placement. What I do know is that there is only one way you can actually get this particular cover, and that is to buy the Give Me Everything box, and that is $175, which gives you a copy of every single thing that's being offered. Now, see, here's the thing: you're going to be cutting yourself off from the more prudish people who are like, well, yeah, okay, I'd like to have a copy of everything, but I'm not really looking to have an adult cover in my comic book collection. There are going to be people out there who are like that. So it just surprises me that you would have this give me everything, but you wouldn't have any kind of PG-13 give me everything package where either you didn't offer the au natural cover at all, or maybe you want to go ahead and offer a different cover that's PG-13 and maybe she's wearing, I don't know, anything else. But, make some sort of offer for people who are not going to be subscribing to those adult sensibilities that would allow them to have a just flat out nude cover in their collection. These prudes do exist, and they probably would appreciate some sort of alternative where they could still benefit you to a large degree, but at the same time not feel like they were debasing themselves. So, getting back to our story, we've got the woman with her boob out basically saying, why didn't you help us, Casimir? And I'm not exactly sure what that's supposed to mean. And I think this is what's really lending to the mystery of the story, because you will see things about the child here. Like, for example, you'll note that the child's scars are underneath the child's clothes, which leads us to believe that something may have erupted outward from the child or was supposed to. So maybe there's something about this child that was supposed to be in league with this particular demon possessed woman, or in league with these demons altogether, but we don't know. All we know is that Stana gets in the way, and then something happens. Now, here's another point where you kind of want to be clear about what's going on, because what I'm seeing here is blood basically erupting from Stana's chest, but it's erupting in all directions. And it took me a while to realize that this demon had basically done a claw swipe across Stana's chest. But a claw swipe would throw blood in that direction. It would not really throw blood in the opposite direction. And when you're dealing with fantasy material where you don't know what the rules are, I don't know what this guy's doing. For all I know, he's got some sort of exploding chest blood magic that is he's going to be using against the creature that's harmful to himself, but he's going to put up a fight. You don't even really have a sense of motion that the creature has done a chest swipe. And so what would also be really helpful in this case is like some speed lines or something else that would give us an idea that this creature's arm has just been on an arc across the guy's chest. And likewise, when you move to the next panel, which shows him coughing up blood and also leaking blood in various ways, I don't know that blood necessarily keeps jetting out of you the way that it seems to be jetting out of him, unless this is something special again, some sort of, either the demon is exerting some sort of blood sucking magic, telekinesis of some sort out of the guy. But, generally speaking, you don't have that kind of wound jetting blood the way this guy's wounds are. In fact, I just recently saw a video of a guy who got stabbed in the neck, and with the exception of maybe the first stab when he got his neck pierced, all the blood just ran straight down his shirt. So yeah, you didn't even though the guy had probably been stabbed in the jugular or the carotid, you still weren't getting a whole lot of streaming stuff. You just basically got you got a whole flow going downward. So the blood spatter in all these directions. I mean, there's kind of a science to this, and realize if you've ever seen the show Dexter, where he's a forensic guy who's also a serial killer himself. Blood spatter is kind of important. Police actually use that to try and figure out various aspects of a crime. So you might want to make sure you know where the blood is supposed to be going. So now we go straight to a clip of the title of the chapter, which leads me to wonder, what happened to Tits McGee here? I mean, we have this woman here with her boob out, and all she did was why didn't you help us? Not only that, but we have this other demon monster here who doesn't get any airplay at all. The only demon from this triumvirate who gets any airplay after this initial scene, where I am completely distracted, is this demon to the left attacking Stana. I mean, that's pretty much it. And then suddenly we are 9 years later. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Do I not at least get to see the other boob? What's going on? I mean, why is it that we completely jumped away without any other kind of reference? But here we are in the future, 9 years later, and far away, near the town of Allstad. Now, these next few pages, I don't really have any issues with at all. You've got a great sequence here where they're looking for a guy who apparently has gone missing in the forest. And you have this one person up at the top taking control and basically saying, you need to go here, you need to go there. And it turns out that that person is a grown up Casimir, the child from the earlier scene. So here you have Casimir, and he's got his friend trailing along with him. And Casimir and his friend are trying to track the wherever it was this Lars guy got off to. And finally, they actually do encounter him. And when they do, they find that he is all kinds of messed up. He's kind of mummified. He's got a tear right through his chest. All of the people are absolutely horrified, and then Casimir's friend notices there's a hole in the guy's chin, which sends Casimir's memories back to that fateful day with the boob lady. So they then resolve to take the body back to the city, and then Casimir's friend says, "I know you know more than what you're saying." And Casimir and his friend go and resolve to investigate further in the morning. Now, at this point, we cut to a scene of the city. And honestly, it was such a stark cut. I didn't realize that this was supposed to be a continuation of this scene. Because what's going on in this panel is here is the party, the search party, coming back through this gate with the body in tow. You can kind of see the body like right there. And this is basically with Casimir and his friend going into this party. It's not easy to tell that's what happened. I really had to stare at this and kind of figure it out after a while. And so what I kind of think should have happened at this point is that we didn't really need this huge of an overview of the city. What we really needed was a intermediate panel here that would say, okay, we've reached Allstad or something. Just something that would connect this intimate scene between the two of them to the larger group who are on their way back to the city, and then leading them into the city. But we don't get that. Instead, we get this very, very sharp jump cut that we're having to interpret. And I don't think that transition goes very smoothly, nor do I think the next transition goes very smoothly, because, and let me move the panel over to the left, where we go next from here is a morning shot. But when does this actually take place? I mean, they're coming in, and then is it immediately morning? I mean, I don't know what time of night it is over here. For all I know, the sun's coming up right away. I don't know. And maybe these are the two guys. Now, I can't really tell from this height which way they're facing. So are they the last two of their party to come into the city this way? And what I realized when this guy yawns is that what has happened is we have transitioned from night to day. We have basically entered the city, and then this is taking place the next morning after they've had at least some amount of sleep. And then Casimir and his friend, as Casimir promised his friend, are going forward or going back out of the city and going to investigate further the scene of the crime, essentially. But we need something better than a sunlit picture to establish the fact that we have had some unspecified period of time in which these guys have been able to sleep. So I would recommend, putting something like the next morning in a box up here, just to let us know that, hey, there's some amount of time that went from here to here. And now these two are leaving the city, and when they leave the city, we get an even larger establishing shot of the city, which makes me feel, even more convinced that this original establishing shot of the city didn't really need to be there in all of its glory. You could shrink this down and give us the intermediate panel that we need in order to understand that the conversation between the two, Casimir and his friend, is now over, and now they're going to be entering the city. So basically, when you've got a huge establishing shot coming up, you don't need to tease an establishing shot earlier on, other than just to communicate the fact that, all right, we made it back to the city, because this does more than a good job of establishing all of the scope of the cityscape. So from here, we come to the point of going right into the business of trying to track the creature. And here's where I feel there have been a couple of missed opportunities. One missed opportunity is just the fact that we don't know anything else about Casimir and his friend, other than, they hang out together somewhat. And you'll note that I keep saying Casimir and his friend. And that's because during the entirety of this preview, I never learn his friend's name. His name is never mentioned anywhere in this 22-page preview. I mean, the only person whose identity is established here is Casimir's himself, just to establish that he is the child from the opening scene. Where is this guy's name? I don't know. I don't understand why we can't get a name out of Casimir, out of somebody in this thing, unless I just totally missed it. I mean, if I missed it, please let me know. Go back and look through the preview yourself. You can find it on fiendishcomic.com, I think it is. But I couldn't find the kid's name. I don't know who this guy is. So this was kind of frustrating, because not only did you have the period between nighttime and sunrise to kind of try to establish some more contextuality to the relationship between Casimir and this kid, or even just to explore a little bit more of Casimir's or the kid's character, or both, in that period of time. Instead, we enter the city at night, we immediately wake up at sunrise, and we're off to the races trying to find, the monster who killed Lars. So I know Lars's name. I don't know this kid's name. So here you have Casimir and the kid, who are going off into the wilderness and basically looking for tracks of the monster. And Casimir's also kind of recounting what had happened to him a long time ago, what he had seen. And all of this is very good storytelling, I think. I mean, in terms of, two guys taking a walk and sharing information, it's at least carried through in a visually interesting enough manner. You later get to a point where there is a caravan coming, and there's a caravan of two, I guess, where these wagons pulled by these animals, which are what? Or there's deer, or there's caribou, or I don't want to make assumptions. Maybe they're antelope, something like that. But this caravan comes through, and there's two. Note that there's two caravans. You can clearly see, or there's two wagons in the caravan. You can clearly see that. And then you get into a whole crap load of text, which is hilarious in the sense that it is bugging the hell out of Casimir. You can tell that. But one of the things I noticed is that while we are drowning in all of this text, you never see the second wagon in the caravan again. And so by the time I get through reading all of this text, I've forgotten that there's a second wagon in the caravan, which makes the next page a bit of a shock, because not only do we get to see a monster leap out of the trees at this at the caravan master, and then a move by Casimir to protect his friend in some way. But we also are reminded at this point of the fact that there is a second wagon, and this comes about as much of a shock. This probably came as more of a shock to me than the creature's attack, because I had totally forgotten that this second wagon existed. So, in the place where you have this long, drawn out conversation between, between the caravan master and himself, you might want to have like an overhead shot or something where you remind us that there's another wagon involved here and not just this particular portion. I mean, that would have been nice to know so that we don't go 2 pages and, because we're drowning in so much text, forget completely about the fact that there's a second wagon involved here. Moreover, what I noticed is that there seems to be a lack of balance in the action that's going on in these particular pages, because you do have what I thought was a very good intro to the scene. You have Casimir all of a sudden just noticing that all of the sounds in the forest have stopped, and he knows there's a problem. So you know something's right about to happen, and sure enough, it does. And then Casimir, you have the beast acting, and then you have Casimir acting, and then you have the beast charging, and I wish I could see what the next page is, because what I would want to see next is to have Casimir, completing whatever action it is that he's trying to do with his friend, whether it's just throw his friend off to the side or do something. But I also feel like that could have been better balanced by having this still be a half-page attack, because I don't know, do we really need a whole page to say the beast attacks the guy in the front seat? Um, I think I would rather have seen the beast attack in this upper panel and then see what Casimir does on the lower panel, so that we can see that this is like split second timing between the two and how they're reacting in their various ways, and being able to see this kind of going off at the same time would have made for a better immediacy. And maybe that's accomplished on the page that comes next, but I don't know, because this is unfortunately the last page in the preview. So, in terms of praises, in my previous preview review, I had a page that was full of praises and suggestions. Here, my praises are kind of limited to the fact that this is really basically good work throughout. I mean, the storytelling throughout is pretty good, with the, not counting the exceptions that I've made along the way. I mean, there were several pages like, these page, or starting from this page going back, there's several pages where I really didn't have much of a problem at all with anything that was written or drawn. And there was a whole sequence going back as far as this, where it's like 7 or 8 pages, and I don't have a word to say of any kind of complaint. So this is really good, solid storytelling, and I think that I need to save the bulk of the page rather than for praises, and also, of course, I love the cover as well. I need to save the bulk for suggestions, and let's just go back over the suggestions that I've made during the course of this review. First of all, let us know when we're seeing through a character's eyes. Give us some sort of visual cue to let us know that that's what's going on. Don't use nudity unless you want to lower sales. That also goes for swearing. There is some swearing, some shit and fuck that goes on in the book. Don't use that unless you want to lower your sales, because, like I said before, PG-13 sales are equal to twice as much as an R-rated sale. Watch your blood spatter. There is a science to that. Careful introducing characters that do nothing. I mean, the woman who comes out and says, Casimir, why didn't you help us? I mean, she gave that clue at least. But the demon off to her side, who was not featured at all later on, that was kind of an extraneous character, and it was just like, is that character just to show that not all the demons look the same? I don't know what purpose that demon character had, and it's just one more thing for the reader to wonder about that's a little bit distracting from the main point of the series. Remember to reconnect intimate scenes to the larger environment. When Casimir and his friend were having their conversation, we didn't get a intermediate scene to connect them back to the group they were traveling with, who was then going to be entering the city. And so it didn't naturally connect when you had that transition from the conversation between Casimir and his friend to the larger group entering the city. Don't overuse establishing shots. We got that large overhead establishing shot of the city, but it turned out to be only a small portion of the city anyway. We got the larger establishing shot a couple pages later. That would have been more than enough. Take time to flesh out characters and relationships, including naming them. Casimir and the kid. Who are these characters when they're not out hunting somebody? When Casimir goes home, I mean, is there anybody at his home? I take it not. When the kid goes home, who does he go home to? What is the kid's name? I still don't know the kid's name. And is there any other kind of signal as far as what the relationship between Casimir and this kid is in terms of their friendship, how they get along, et cetera, et cetera? What does the kid's family think of Casimir? Things like that. There was opportunity lost between between the nighttime scene of them entering the city and the sunrise scene, where you could have explored a little bit more there. Don't lose track of all the players. Like I said, there was a whole wagon in the caravan that I completely lost sight of because I was drowning in so much text from the leader of the caravan. And then last but not least, balance the action. I thought that in those last couple of pages, it would have helped to have had, with the beast attacking and then Casimir and his friend have the beast attacking, and then what is Casimir doing next? Just to have that kind of symmetry and keep us, realizing there are two things going on at the same time, which keeps us on our toes. So that is my review of the 22-page preview to Fiendish, Chapter 1, Demons. The campaign Fiendish Chapter 2, Origins is still out and active, and you can get in on that. See if you can push that up to the next stretch goal, which I believe occurs at $110,000, so it's not far away. And don't forget, if you want to pick up both books at once, you can pick it up for the discounted price of $45. And I got to tell you, I'm really tempted on this one because I really have this feeling like I've just barely gotten to know these characters, and I'd like to see where they kind of go from here, and to see what is the relationship between Casimir and honestly, yeah, I'm wondering if the boob lady comes back. Yeah, this is a very, very tempting series. I don't know whether I'll get it or not. I may hold off maybe for Fiendish Chapter 3. You never know. I know this is actually supposed to go on for several chapters. Maybe, oh gosh, I can't remember how many chapters. It was in the double digits, I think. But yeah, this one is impressive. This one does reach out. There are good bits of humor in here. There are just good establishing storytelling from page to page. I mean, there's little points along the way, like I was pointing out, that do need work, that could use improvement, but overall, I'd say that this is a good effort and worthy of getting you to check it out. So do click on the video description, look for the link in the video description, see what options are available to you, see if you want to go ahead and plunk down. I myself, if I plunk down, will most likely get this Fiendish #1 and #2. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you for watching this preview review, and I will talk to you later.